It's Monday, and although there hasn't been any Premier League football, we are still going to try and claw a story from the lack of news that's going around about Manchester United that doesn't involve the managerial position of Ten Hag. We're going to be getting to that story very, very soon, but if you've not watched before, or you've not subscribed before, why do you keep watching and not subscribing? Just take a finger, innit? And just
just stick
it down.
And subscribe and that.
Yeah.
How are you? You alright?
I'm good, cheers, man, yeah.
My mate just ran me around. I'm going to give him a shout out now, Jay Juniper, my pal. Because he was upset. Jay Juniper, yeah.
It's like a superhero.
Juniper's his name, but we call him Jay.
Oh.
And he was moaning, right, because we did you know one of them last man standing things?
No.
I did, right. It's one of those where you'll say like a player. So you'll say like, I don't know, Mark Hughes or Eric Cantona. So you'll say Eric Cantona, Andy Cole.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry.
And it's the last man standing,
right, yeah,
so you keep going. So I did it, and he's like, my mate, he's like Michael Carrick's biggest fan. And Michael Carrick, let's just say he wasn't the last midfielder standing, it was midfielders. Let's just say the last midfielder standing was Paul Scholes, and we'll leave it at that. So
that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the route that I took to get there that he wasn't happy about.
Right. Okay.
Where do you rate Michael Carrick, by the way, in the sort of pantheon of United greats?
He wouldn't get into my best 11.
Yeah.
Subs bench. If I'm picking
I think that's reasonable.
Players that I've seen throughout my life,
Yeah.
I'd say it definitely gets in the subs bench. Probably 4 Scholes.
What's the story here then? What we're talking about? New board, same problems?
Well, I thought it'd be interesting to look at, this is Ineos' first season at Manchester United. Obviously, they came towards the end, but they came in like fits and starts with the positions getting filled, dragged on for over a year. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how they've got on so far, just looking at this season compared to previous ownership, because obviously everybody celebrated. The Glazers haven't gone permanently. You know, they're still there hanging around in the background, pulling some of the strings and, you know, filling their pockets as they are. But I thought it'd be interesting to see how Ineos' start at Manchester United is compared to the Glazers.
I think, yeah, I understand your point of view here. I think, obviously, there's a lot of differences. The main difference, let's just get the elephant out of the room. Obviously, when the Glazers came in, they saddled up with hundreds of millions of pounds worth of debt. So we're not talking about that, because that was disastrous. And I don't think the football club has ever fully recovered from that. And you know, you wonder whether we ever will. So we get from the sort of financial side of things, obviously the Glazers are far, far worse than Ineos. So Jim Ratcliffe has put his money into the club. The Glazers just took it out. They didn't put any money into the club. They just had these loans where they leveraged the club against the loans themselves and just ploughed us into debt. But you're talking about the decisions that have been taken on Ineos' watch compared to some of the early decisions we saw when the Glazers came in.
Yeah, certainly, and it's how that's translated onto performances on the pitch. So what we'll look at things like the transfer window from under the Glazers compared to Ineos, the performances that's on the pitch, and what your optimism levels are going forward under Ineos. Have you seen enough within this short amount of time?
I think the main question there, I get where you're coming from with you know, how do they compare. I think for me, it's not even as much how they compare to Glazers, or we can get into that, because I think obviously the Glazers had Fergie, and it's like you've got this team that's you're inheriting, you're taking over a team that's been the champions of England, I think 4 times in the last 7 years when the Glazers took over, or whatever it was. I've got Sir Alex Ferguson, I've got players like Wayne Rooney, Cristiano Ronaldo, Rio Ferdinand already at the club.
You've been given a Ferrari, and all you need to do is be able to learn to drive.
I think for me, the question I'm asking is how the Ineos sort of comparing with some of the other clubs and other management or the other owners in the league at the minute, and are they making the right moves to challenge at the top, which is what you see. Now, the reason we're even having this conversation, and when you suggested that, I was all for it, is because we are seeing a few, what looks like confusing decisions. I don't want to say missteps, it might be a bit too soon to say missteps, but at the minute you're looking at it, you're going, okay, they've made some what you think on paper are correct decisions. Bringing in someone like Omar Barada makes sense to me. The guys at City, even though we hate City, they're very successful, albeit with 115 charges hanging over him. He's coming in, he's got a footballing pedigree, he's not coming from a rugby background or a whatever background, background like Ed Woodward was. So that makes sense. Wilcox, again, he's got pedigree. Dan Ashworth, so these appointments make sense to me. But then you look at the way we went around things in the summer. Erik Ten Hag, the decision making around that wasn't great. I'm not saying the fact that they kept him, because I wanted us to keep him, so I'm not going to change my tune on that one. How they got there felt a bit weird.
Yeah.
Because me and you spoke about it at the time, and it was like, all right, okay, if you're truly backing this manager, I don't care what anyone says, you don't need to interview anyone else. You don't need to go and speak to anyone else if you think you've got the right manager for the job. Like, I can't imagine you want to go back to the Glazers. The Glazers coming in 2005 and saying, right, our first thing is we're going to go and interview all these managers around Europe and see if we've got the right one. Can you imagine Fergie's attitude? I know they might have been looking at other managers when Fergie said he was going to retire before the Glazers got it.
Yeah.
I get that, but I mean, imagine if they'd have come in and gone, because I think 2005 we lost the FA Cup final, we finished third, it wasn't a good season by Manchester United standards. They could have come in and gone, well, we're not sure about this Fergie guy, let's chat to Wenger, let's chat to Mourinho, let's chat to Benitez. Can you see Fergie's stomach in that? No. So it felt a bit of a odd move to do that, and I didn't quite buy the PR of, we just wanted to see we've got the best in class, and we realise we have, especially as you pointed out the other day, Tuchel said no as much as we didn't want him. So that was a bit confusing. Also, we've got this transfer policy which is interesting, to say the least.
Interesting is a good word, isn't it? What do you mean by that?
Because we seem to have gone with the approach of we are going to get young players, right? Now, I don't mind that. What I find a little bit odd is this attitude of we are exclusively going to get young players or youngish players. I know Manuel Guy, I think he's 25. Nusayr Mazraoui, I think he's 26, 27. But then it's like Yoro, Xerxes, who else? Delict, again, he's 25, so he's youngish. But I think there is scope where you might want an experienced player to come in. Ideally a striker, in my opinion. You might go, what? There's a striker who's 30, 31. That's not the end of the world, getting in someone who might have a couple of seasons left in him at the very top, if it helps the team. So I find that a little bit risky. I get it, I just feel it's a risky approach because I know I keep banging on this drum, Scotty. I've spoke about it to you many times on this channel, privately, on Paddock. I have a massive concern about the lack of goals in this team.
Yep.
And the transfer policy seems to have almost ignored two areas for me. It's ignored immediate goals in terms of actually putting the ball in the net. I don't mean, goals as in ambitions. And also the left-back position. We've just sort of gone, let's forget that. And let's just get young players in. Let's look at other areas. We'll be all right. And that worries me a little bit because United have struggled for goals this season. And
last season as well. That was a huge, reason why we ended up where we did in the league, because Marcus Rashford couldn't fulfil on the same sort of, goals that he did previously. So you look at that and think, is Højlund going to be up to scratch? Does he need another season to bed into the Premier League? And I agree with you completely. If we want to do anything within this league or the Europa League or any cup competition, it's fundamental that we have a goal scorer in our team, and it's evident that that's going to be our downfall amongst a lot of other stuff this season as to why Manchester United might fall short when we're going chasing for trophies, if we still are chasing for trophies, which is an issue.
You made that point about chasing for trophies, and this I think is one of Erik Ten Hag's problems at the minute, because when things start going south halfway through the season and you're still in the cup competitions, you can point at that and go, look, and I think he did that a little bit last season. That quarter-final win over Liverpool helped calm everyone down a little bit. Look, we're still in the FA Cup. We've got a good chance of winning this. We can finish the season with a trophy. And it was kind of like his get out of jail free card, where he could go, okay, the league has gone to pot, disastrous, but we can still end with a trophy. And I think people were going, okay, right, all right, fair enough. And we did, to be fair to the kid. But now we're in October. You can't be saying to people in October, well, we're still in the cup competitions. That's, for starters, it's meaningless. Because you're in the Carabao Cup.
We're still in the Cup.
Yeah, you're in the Carabao, obviously, because you beat Barnsley. Secondly, the Europa League is, you could be in the Europa League no matter what. It seems it's almost impossible to get knocked out of the Europa League.
I was trying to work this out now, because we've only got 2 points. We've got Fenerbahce away.
We've got PAOK, is it? We've got Bodo Glimt. We've got Fenerbahce. We've got Rangers.
But I couldn't work out how many points you need to sort of get through to the next round.
No one knows.
No one knows.
It's a mystery.
Right, okay.
Well, I think it's one of them. You can finish 18th or something and still qualify.
Oh, so that's good for us.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. And I think I'm getting involved in the chat and the comments, and I will be getting into your comments in a minute. But it is almost impossible. Like, you've got to go some lengths.
You've got to be really bad. You've got Yep.
I'd be very surprised if Manchester United. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possible. It's not literally impossible. Of course, you can get.
We do like breaking, things that aren't possible.
There's that, and also, it doesn't quite hit the same when you say we're still in the Europa. If you're in the Champions League, fair enough. If you go, well, we're through to the knockout stage of the Champions League, I think people will back you because of that. I don't think the same is with the attitude with the Europa. Also, the FA Cup's not started yet. It doesn't start till January, so you can't look at that one. Carabao, again, I've mentioned. So I think you need to do more in the league. And I think you can't have the same sort of expectation from the fans, from media, whatever, this season as you did last season. Last season, people went, all right, you had a good first season, we've had an injury crisis, okay, the cup competition's all right, yeah, fair enough, and it worked. This season, I feel like you've got to deliver in the cups. So I feel like that is a little bit of an issue for Erik ten Hag, because people might point out and go, well, okay, Jose Mourinho in his first season relied on the Europa League to get him into Europe, into Champions League, and he gave up with the league in January. But also, there's two things to remember there. A, it was Jose's first season, so we were not allowed to get rid of him during the season. And B, he won the Carabao. So he got that in the bag in February, and then was like, and also with Jose, he was kind of honest about it. He kind of went, look, we want to get in the Champions League, we're going for Europa. And I remember watching some of that the league games, like Swansea home and all that. I was just like, oh my God, what are you doing? But he said, look, this is what I'm going to do. We're risky, and we rode our luck a lot, especially in that semi-final against Celta Vigo. But it worked. I don't think Erik ten Hag can do the same.
When you're looking at the sort of transfers that you mentioned earlier on, though, how much do you actually put that on to sort of Ten Hag or the board? Because the whole thing about them coming in was that they're going to take the responsibility off the manager in terms of buying players, and yet the majority of the players that have come in have been have played with Ten Hag before. So what do you reckon in terms of like?
That's another thing you don't want to mention.
That doesn't make sense. It's very confusing. Right. It's like muddied waters, really.
You mentioned it. We mentioned it at the start of this show, and we spoke about it, and we said it's confusing, it's weird, it's a bit odd. It doesn't quite make sense to me. And these are smart people than me, so they might see the bigger picture and know what they're doing. But I do agree with you, because it's like, right, okay, from what we gather, from all the reporting, from people who are credible, it was like, look, Erik ten Hag was more or less given control over his transfers when he arrived. It was kind of one of the things he wanted to do, and that showed in the transfers that he made. Like, you look at it, it became like Ajax 11, didn't it? With Martinez, with Antony, Eriksen had been at Ajax. I know obviously we didn't get him from there. Also, you look at some of the other players. Mason Mount comes in and you go, okay, he's bought him because of what he's did at Chelsea. Well, apparently he remembered him from his days at Vitesse Arnhem. Yeah. So even that is a Dutch connection. Matthijs de Ligt, now we're going into this season, Now you look at it, you go, okay, it's going to be different. But then you look at some of the signings. Mazraoui, de Ligt, I think, have got an Ajax connection. Xerxes Dutch. Yeah. I know, and I don't want to be all like, oh, he's Dutch, that means he's Erik ten Hag signing. But you'd imagine the manager's got an opinion on him and knows a lot about him because he's coming from the same country and he's seen him play firsthand. So it does feel like Erik ten Hag's still got a big say in these transfers. But also then, you've got like a couple of ones where you go, did he have a say in that? And the main one that's standing out for me at the minute is Manuel Ugarte. Because there's rumours that he wanted to keep Sofiane Amrabat and he actually wanted to keep Scott McTominay. When I say keep Sofiane Amrabat, I mean, renew his deal or whatever, and keep Scott McTominay, which would kind of make sense to me. Not that I agree with it necessarily, but from Erik ten Hag's point of view, because Scott McTominay scored a lot of important goals for Erik ten Hag.
Doing well for Napoli as well.
Yeah, he came up clutch for Erik ten Hag last season. When Erik ten Hag needed desperate, and he needed a lot of, it was bad enough. But you think about it, you took Scott McTominay's goals out of last season. You don't beat Brentford. You don't beat.
He must have been our third or fourth highest goal scorer.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he got about 9 league goals. He wasn't prolific, but
he was prolific in a team that wasn't prolific.
He scored some important goals. So you think you can understand if the manager actually did want to keep Scott McTominay and maybe doesn't fancy a guy. Now it's too early to tell, but it was a bit of a surprise that Manuel Ugarte went back-to-back games without starting. You thought, okay, is he not 100% fit? You'd think he'd have had enough in the tank to feature in those games, especially when you keep playing Christian Eriksen, who's obviously, 32? 32. Kobbie Mainoo as well, as the other end of the spectrum, he's 19. He could probably do the breathing now and again, but you keep throwing them in, sometimes almost on their own. Bruno's gone to the dogs a little bit this season. I'm not slaying Bruno, I love him, but not playing great. So it's like asking a lot of those two players. And you've got Manuel Ugarte there, and it just doesn't feel like he quite... I don't know, it might be wrong.
Yeah.
We'll get into the comments and I'll come back to that.
I mean, when you look at the comments, I mean, in terms of a signing, it's certainly a position that we've been looking to strengthen. Obviously, there was a lot of complaints about the Mac Fred years, and we did want a big name in there in midfield with Casemiro's legs, and we thought he was going to go in the summer. So I expected us to buy a midfielder of that ilk, but was that more pressing than a centre forward? Like, if Ten Hag did want to keep Amrabat and McTominay, what would have been 30 mil, 40 mil to get a striker? Obviously, you're not going to get an elite striker, but maybe one that's, towards his later years of his career that can put the ball in the back of the net.
I'll be honest with you, Scott. And I know Amrabat wasn't great for a big chunk of his United career, but I did.
He won us the FA Cup final.
No, well, this is it. I lost my head with it, and I said it on Stretford Pad a lot. If you look towards the end of the season, he sort of started showing us what he was about. Had a fantastic game in the FA Cup final. And also, a lot of the season, and I'm not just excusing all his performances, but he's played like left-back. He's not a left-back. He's a central midfielder. And you're thinking, okay, could you have kept him?
Yeah.
And saved that money and spent some of that? Because I think Amrabat, your guy was around 50 million money or 40 odd million. And I think Amrabat would have been about half of that, if that. So I don't know. We'll get into some of the comments, and I'm going to come back to you.
Make sure you subscribing and liking.
Jay in the Mountain says they kept Erik ten Hag because there was no one else. That's a fact. Ridwan says Jim Ratcliffe doesn't like Erik ten Hag, does he? Ridwan makes another good point here. He says, I don't think a striker comes in and scores goals as games are passing. We aren't creating enough quality chances. Would Ireland score 30 Premier League goals in this team? No, meaning systematic issue. Jay in the Mountains also says Højlund is not the answer. We need a real pedigree striker. Bring back Falcao. Ross McPherson says, can definitely see us losing to Fenerbahce. Mourinho at the helm, Fred and Amrabat in midfield. It's written. Boxing Straight Talk says, Ineos are definitely looking inept, keeping a failing manager who has spent 650 million. It's ludicrous if you think about it. Mick Holohan says, hold me Jay. Ridwan also says, did Maresca get to pick the players he wants at Chelsea? Nope, he's a coach. He's there to give instructions, improve players that are already there and new players. Why can't Ten Hag do this? Ridwan says he's a proper back manager, Ten Hag, compared to many other managers. Also other people getting in the top. Santa Notch says we'd click with Donald Love back. Santa Notch as well. It is his birthday today, the Notchster. Absolute legend. Big supporter of Stretford Paddock. Big supporter of Scotty and Moy. We love him. Thank you, Notch. And a happy birthday. DB Cooper says, I think we've been overrating the squad for many years. I want to get into that then. Because if you can allow me to put myself in Ineos' shoes for a minute.
Yep.
They've gone through this policy.
What shoes are they for a start?
Shoes that me and you could never afford if we, you know what I mean? If we sold everything we
own. And get one,
yeah, we get one between them, we get the insole. So they're coming in there going, right, we're going to buy young players. Yep. It's a long-term project. Omar Barada said it's 2028 when he thinks we're going to win the league. Does that buy the manager time then if they're going, look, instantly we ain't getting you that 30-year-old striker who's going to get you 25 goals. We're getting you the 23-year-old who might get you 10. We're getting you the younger defender who in Lenny Oro who's going to be amazing in a few years, but right now he's still finding his feet at the very top level. I know he's played at the top level, but you get my point. Certainly not playing in the Premier League. Do you think they might be looking here going, look, we can stomach it to a certain degree? I don't know if they'll stomach it to 14th.
Yeah.
But to a certain degree because they see it as a process. I
think that they have that in mind. Maybe one of the reasons why we didn't get any managerial changes within the summer, because I think if they would have swapped Ten Hag for say a Tuchel, and Tuchel said, well, you're not getting any superstars in the summer, we're building a team for the future. It doesn't look like that much of an as an appeal to come to Manchester United as it usually would. But I can see that, but I don't know if that gives Ten Hag any grace, because whilst these are players that aren't the full of potential rather than proven, you still should be able to get a tune out of professional footballers, regardless about whether they are, elite. You should get better performances out of them than he has done so far. So I think that's where it is. You can allow certain mistakes here and there to happen, but when it happens consistently and you're not getting anything out of any of them, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah, I hear you, I do. And, I've defended and backed Erik ten Hag forever. But I did say I thought he needed to get going in the league, and I said before the Spurs game, it's a game that, and it wasn't just that game, it was the games running up to that. I said he needs to start taking some points, and he didn't. And I looked at that Spurs game, and he might even be unlucky, right? Because Spurs can collapse in the second half of football, and that red card weren't a red card, so you never know how the game might have panned out. But we will never know. All we know is what we saw on the football pitch, which wasn't good enough. I also look at the Porto game, which for me was a bit raising a few red flags. It just looked like a manager who was struggling a little bit. I don't even necessarily think bringing De Ligt and Martinez off, because I think that was a good idea, because they were getting bullied.
Well, Maguire got the equaliser, didn't he? So.
I think just in terms of the way we set up, the fact that he sort of took Marcus off, I think there was a better way of handling that. If Marcus, you're getting exposed on the left-hand side, why have you got Delot tucking in? Why have you got Martinez sort of struggling to cover it? It's there's other changes you can make without necessarily. Why not shift Marcus onto the other side or down the middle even, because he's having such a good game.
I'm surprised,
attacking wise.
I'm surprised Marcus hasn't been played down the middle more often. You know, considering how much he's not scoring down the left-hand side, just do it as an alternative because it isn't working at the moment. But actually, see, it's like some ways it seems like knee-jerk reactions with stuff like that. Like you don't look at sort of tinkering it. Maybe okay, we'll try something a little bit different. But it's just we'll take Marcus off. You know,
it did very. I always think for a half-time sub, you've played a lot of football. It's quite a big move. If you get subbed at half-time without an injury, you're fuming.
Yeah,
you're fuming and you're gutted and you're embarrassed because that's kind of the manager going, it's your fault.
Especially when you scored.
Yeah, I scored. Was it a goal and an assist on it?
Yeah.
And he's done this twice now this season. He did obviously with Casemiro at half-time against Liverpool. Now, let's be honest, Casemiro was having one against Liverpool.
Yeah,
I get it, but it's a big call when you do it with your senior players. Gary Neville spoke about it after the game, after the Liverpool game, and he said, look, you know, that's a big thing to do, to take one of your senior players off at half-time, because you're basically saying it's your fault this game's going the wrong way. And you might have to build some bridges there. Now, I think what he did, Erik and showed a bit of tactical now. Not maybe tactical now is the wrong word. Managerial, man management now, in giving him the armband for the Barnes game, whatever. It's like, right, you're back in and you're captain. Bit of a tapping because I think he would have been captain, but it shows like, you know, I still back you, still my guy, whatever. Casemiro, I doubt he dreamt of leading the team out against Barnsley in the first round of the Carabao Cup. But it's a bit of an olive branch, and it's sort of, at least optics-wise, it looks good because it's like, well, there isn't an issue. Is it the skipper? And Casemiro's obviously, I think it was the Barnsley game. He's starting again and being the skipper. Marcus, I think, is a weird one. I don't think they necessarily fell out. I just feel that Marcus is a bit of a weird one, isn't he, Marcus? Because he's sort of, on his day, we can talk about how great he is, but he has these sort of almost like mood swings where he looks unhappy, it's not happening for him. So, okay, there's defensive frailties there, but when he's playing well, for me, play him. Get him, keep him going. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And he's been very fits and starts with Marcus. I don't think he's used Garnacho and Diallo in the best way. Neither of those two have consistently got going this season, and it feels very stop-start. One's on the right, one's on the left. One's dropped, one's a sub, one comes on. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like either of those two have quite got going. And then similarly with Joshua Zirkzee, who I think is a good player, a good footballer. But I think the problem you've got with Joshua Zirkzee is he's almost like he reminds me a little bit of a Roberto Firmino character. I don't mean necessarily just the way he plays. There's similarities there, but in the sense that he might be a striker who gets you 15 goals in all competitions, but that's okay if you've got wingers either side of him.
Yeah.
He'll get you 25, 30 goals in all competitions, which is what happened with Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah when Firmino was at Liverpool. I think the issue you've got at United is there's a definite chance that you could have a season where Zirkzee gets you 10 goals in all competitions, Marcus gets you 10 goals, Garnacho gets you 10 goals, Diallo gets you 10, and that's not enough.
No.
I know Højlund, I'm ignoring Højlund there, so forgive me, Højlund weighs in as well. But we don't necessarily have that guy who can step up. And for Zirkzee to be, his most useful, he needs players alongside him that are going to bank goals because he's not prolific.
No, but he's not prolific, but he has a certain level of enthusiasm that I've not seen in players like Marcus. And we were saying there when he's got his face on, to quote the Arctic Monkeys, you're not going to get a game of football out of him. And when you take him off at half time, I think that can only be detrimental, considering that he did have the assist and the goal in the first half. But someone said it there systematically, and you were making references to using Diallo and Garnacho. Then he goes to Villa Park, and in hindsight was a good result considering the context of everything that was going on around the game. But he starts with like Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. Now his two signings were Martinez and De Ligt. Now they didn't make the starting lineup, and the same because there's a lot of games coming up in rotation. We're going off to international break. The priority is them not being fit for their countries, fit for your players that you've backed to be in your starting 11. Last season, starting with Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire, by his own admission, was sort of the reason why United were losing games, because he didn't have his strongest 11. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then when you've got young players coming into a system that is this confused, what does that teach them? How can they possibly thrive? Because you've not got the foundation set up, and they shouldn't be here 2 and a bit years into his tenure that we're still going, what is Ten Hag trying to do at Manchester United?
It was a shame, the Villa Park result, because in many ways, I could respect that if it wasn't the fact and it is a good result, a decent result, it's a good result. A 0-0 draw is never going to get anyone excited. You're not going to say, do you remember away?
It's one of the worst games of football I've ever seen, though.
But I think, like, had we been in this sort of run where we were in and around the top 4, and you go to Villa Park, and you go, right, we're going to keep it nice and compact, and we'll get a point. And you go, all right, yeah. You know, just beaten Bayern Munich, Villa. The flying Ollie Watkins and the kid Durand and all that can't stop scoring. Yeah, but when you off the back of bad results, you look for a bit more. You look for taking the game to them, maybe getting at him. And it just felt like it wasn't that. It felt very much like we were 1-0 up from the first leg. And that wasn't, that shouldn't have been the case. So it's a bit of a shame because actually you can look at it and you go, I think when he comes out with certain things in the media, I do think there's an element of him saying that rather than in public rather than private. I think he might have had a word with Miners and Delitz and just said, look, have a breather because you've fucking had a stinker against, no disrespect to Porto, a team that isn't. If Porto were in the Premier League, they'd probably be mid-table, and they absolutely bullied Delitz and Miners and maybe saying, look, you're looking a bit out of sorts, take a breather. Maguire and Evans come in, and Evans was man of the match. Can't fault his performance, handled the Villa attack superbly. It's just the optics. I keep going back to the optics. It doesn't look great because you're in this vein, you're in this run of struggling, and then you're coming out with things that people are questioning. You go in tactics that are quite negative. It just doesn't feel great.
And the subs bench is full of your players that you signed.
Again, that doesn't look great. It's the perception, innit? Yeah. I'm just going to get into some of the comments and I'll come back to you. Good to see. I think I've just seen John Shin in the comments. I'm sure he just...
Good evening, Mr. Shin.
There he is. Jay, I woke up this morning and realised I missed you with your beard. No one misses me with my beard, least of all me. That was a pretty drastic lockdown beard. That was when we started the channel, though, wasn't it? Earlier videos.
Yeah, I look like Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln.
No, it was like a...
No, I had the thing, though, as well. Like, Abe Lincoln just has that bit, doesn't he?
You did look like a Black Amish.
No, because Amish, you don't have that bit, do you?
Is that because of the beliefs that they don't have a moustache?
I'm not even remotely getting into that one on any way, shape or form because I don't know anything about the Amish, and I'll probably...
Is it Amish or Amish? Amish.
It depends where you're from.
Amish.
Amish
sounds Scottish, doesn't
it? Amish sounds like your mate, doesn't it? Amish in Manchester. Yeah. But no, it wasn't very, like, you grow a full beard overnight, whereas me, I grew it for months, and it was all right, but it was all right because I grew it for so long. But actually, it wasn't very thick. Do you know what I mean? It was like if you look closely, you could see,
you're getting the filler on.
Yeah, you could see gaps there. So I think it's safe to say I will never have a beard again.
You never know.
You never say never. Kite Boy says, how is the Villa game any worse than Liverpool Anfield last year? He's talking about the 0-0 Liverpool Anfield last year, which, again, it's context in it. I think the thing with the Liverpool Anfield game, that was our first game back at Anfield after the 7-0. That 0-0, and also we had the best chance of the game in that game. Rasmus Højlund should have scored, in my opinion. It felt more positive because it was like everyone thought we were going to get battered.
Oh yeah, the writing was on the wall before kick-off, wasn't it? We're going to get annihilated.
This is going to be another 7-0.
And before the game, as much as I love that fixture in United winning at Anfield more than anything else in football, before the game, if someone says if it's 0-0, I won't like, well, that's a good result at Anfield. Someone says to me 0-0 away at Villa, and we look toothless throughout, considering everything else that's going on.
Callum Imrie makes a good point. Villa had just drawn against Ipswich. They were hardly flying. Santa Notch says Jay shaved off his beard so I could grow mine. Ross Murphy says the beard didn't suit Jay. I prefer a clean, bald Jay. Kite Boy as well says true. Garnacho missed a doozy. He did, didn't he? Would have been a great smash and grab that Anfield. It really annoyed me because that game we should have won. Right. Erik ten Hag is going to be the Manchester United manager for the foreseeable future. What has he got to do to turn it around for you?
He's got to win every game up until what's the next hardest game? Is it Arsenal? Is the next one? We've got a favourable run of fixtures, but even then, when you look at them, Brentford are possible to do us. Fenerbahce away, as someone said in the comments, isn't an easy game. Who else have we got after that?
So you got
West Ham away.
Hello, is that West Ham? Tricky but winnable.
Yeah, Leicester, you should be winning that game. And then is it Chelsea?
Chelsea at home.
So he's got. It's another month of results where you think he's got to win 3 out of them 4 at least.
The thing with the I honestly think, right, I'll be honest with you, and I said this last time, if he's going to save himself, the 3 games he's got to get results out of are Brentford, West Ham, and Chelsea. Now you might go, well, you can't get knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Leicester, but even so, I don't think that's as important as these league games, because I think the concept of these league games is you've got Thomas Frank, who was on the radar for Ineos in Brentford, and he's got a pretty underwhelming record against Brentford, I think. So imagine, I think it's okay-ish, it's patchy, should we say. Obviously, we've had bad results and good results against Brentford since Erik ten Hag's come in, but if you lose at home there, I think you're in all sorts of trouble straight away. Like, wow, 3rd home defeat on the spin. Thomas Frank was someone we looked at. What's going on there? West Ham away, they've got a new manager. Like, they're in all sorts of trouble. That's one that you look at. Okay, it's tricky, but it's not.
He won 2-0 there last season.
It's not Real Madrid. And then you've got Chelsea at home. The narrative there. Maresca's a new manager. They're in not in disarray, but they were at a bit of a shambles, weren't they? This summer, Maresca's come in. They've took Jadon Sancho off us. I don't know what the clause is there. I imagine he can't play. It's still technically, I think, it's still a loan move. Yeah. So I don't think he'll play. But if you lose at home to Chelsea, then that again just looks shocking. Then you've got PAOK, who gives a toss. Leicester at home in the league, again another one. You've got to win that one. Ipswich away, again there's a narrative. Kieran McKenna, young manager, people looking at him. Sorry, forgive me. The Leicester game at Old Trafford in the league is the last one before the international break.
Right, okay.
So I think that is where Ineos will take stock. Now, the good thing for Erik ten Hag, if you're Erik ten Hag, like you just said, they're all winnable. You could win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There's not any game there.
You could win all 7.
That if you show me the fixture list at the beginning of the season, I would have said that we should win all them games.
No.
But you just look at what's happening and the increase on the injuries. And for now, he can't go back to that excuse because our defence is depleted again. I'm tired of it.
Let me ask you one question before we wrap up then.
Keep Harry Maguire.
Is, for the game on the 24th of November, Ipswich away, after the next international break, because, we've not had an international break for ages, is Erik ten Hag the manager of Manchester United Football Club? Not should he be, not, if it was your choice, will he be?
I can't see him turning this ship around, really. I just can't see it, and I don't think he'll win all the games that either of us expect him to. I think what's probably happened now is that Ineos have already started looking about and saying who could replace him. They haven't done anything over this international window because there wasn't an obvious thing, and I think it would have looked a little bit like they had egg on their face. But you make a reference to Thomas Frank there. If Brentford beat United on Saturday, I wouldn't be overly surprised if Thomas Frank was towered through the next United job.
There you go. It might be all over Saturday, or he might amaze us all, go on a run and win the title. Who knows what can happen?
Which title?
In football? The Carabao Cup title. Okay. The real one.
Right. Make sure you're subscribing, liking and sharing the video. Jay and I are off to try and find some Primark versions of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's shoes so we can walk around and pretend to be billionaires. I've been Scotty. That's been Moya. See you soon.